Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tom Schulzenberg, Director of Strategic Projects for St. Mary's University. It is both a privilege and a pleasure to welcome you today to this important event for St. Mary's. Today we are embarking on a new chapter for our university's academic and intellectual life that will enrich our Lasallian Catholic mission. And this includes hosting our scholar today, whose work and influence is globally known. Dr. Pierluca Azzaro, whom we are honored to hear from today, brings with him a wealth of knowledge and experience as he begins the newly established Benedict XVI Chair here at St. Mary's University. Dr. Azzaro holds degrees in theology, philosophy, and history, having completed his studies in Rome and Berlin. He teaches at the Faculty of the Political and Social Sciences at the Catholic University of the Sacred Heart in Milan. His love of learning is only surpassed by his love of teaching students in the classroom, something which we certainly hold in common. His teaching, which spans a wide range of topics, including the history of Western political thought and history of Eastern Europe, invites students from all over the world, especially English-speaking and international students, to engage with the rich traditions that have shaped our world. What sets Dr. Azzaro apart is his focus on Greek, Jewish, early Christian, and medieval roots of political thought. His academic work encourages students to explore how these historical and intellectual traditions continue to shape our modern-day values and institutions. This makes his approach particularly relevant to the interdisciplinary learning environment we foster here at St. Mary's. However, Dr. Azzaro's contributions go well beyond the classroom. Since 2010, he has served as the editor and translator of the Italian edition of the collected works of Joseph Ratzinger, also known as Pope Benedict XVI. This responsibility speaks to his profound connection to one of the most influential Catholic theologians of the modern era. Dr. Azzaro's work in this area ensures that Pope Benedict's theological and philosophical writings remain accessible to a global audience, which continues to shape theological discourse. In fact, Dr. Azzaro's contributions go even deeper. As a member of the New School, a prestigious group of scholars committed to advancing the thought and teachings of Joseph Ratzinger, he plays a pivotal role in fostering dialogue on the relationship between faith and reason. Since 2014, he has also served as the Executive Secretary of the Joseph Ratzinger Benedict XVI Vatican Foundation, an organization dedicated to promoting the former Pope's intellectual legacy. Today, we formally established the Benedict XVI Chair at St. Mary's University. Dr. Azzaro will help us further this dialogue. This chair, generously funded by a group of dedicated donors, is designed to explore the integration of faith and reason, a central theme in Pope Benedict XVI's own work. It will provide opportunities for our faculty and students to engage deeply with the intellectual and spiritual traditions that will inform Catholic education. So, what does this mean for us as a university? First, the chair will foster rich conversations and symposia like the one we are here for today that will allow us to reflect on critical issues facing culture and society. Dr. Azzaro will facilitate these dialogues, encouraging all of us, whether students or faculty, to engage critically with the theological and philosophical underpinnings of modern social and ethical challenges. Second, this chair will enhance our academic programs by attracting international scholars and educators, enriching the educational opportunities available to our students. For our students, this means providing them access to a global network of thought leaders who are making valuable contributions to international scholarship. Finally, the Benedict XVI Chair strengthens the position of St. Mary's University as a national and international leader in Catholic education. As the first American university to formally partner with the Joseph Ratzinger Vatican Foundation, we are taking a significant step in preserving and advancing the intellectual legacy of Pope Benedict XVI. This partnership aligns with our Lasallian Catholic mission, which calls us to empower learners to ethical lives, service, and leadership. This is a momentous occasion for our university, and we are grateful to Dr. Azzaro for joining us on this journey. His expertise will undoubtedly help us to bridge the gap between faith and reason, between tradition and modernity, and between intellectual inquiry and spiritual reflection. This is an exciting time for all of us whether we are faculty, staff, or students, to deepen our engagement with these profound ideas. If we have time after our lecture, we will open it up for Q&A. And this being All Hallows Eve, we'll have some treats for you afterwards as well. So please grab those on your way to class, or if you do not have class, please stick around for some treats afterwards. Thank you. And with that, it's my distinct pleasure to welcome Dr. Pierluca Azzaro.
Thanks very much to everybody. I'm happy to see you again, at least a part of you. And what I desire to do is to explain in a few words the reason why our foundation puts that importance in the cooperation with this precise university. I will begin with an episode because I decided not to read, simply to read what I have prepared a month ago, but to embed what I had thought before in the experiences I made this day, which were for me extremely useful and precious. Beginning, as I said, from an episode, I went days ago, was invited by Vice President of Academic Affairs, Sue Hines, to a Greek restaurant. And we saw hanging on the wall behind us a large wood panel, one of those used by the stores as a protection during the famous Minneapolis riots. And the protesters had written on it as a kind of mural, "We can change the world. We can change the world." Obviously, the question that immediately arose during the discussion were, on the one hand, how it could be possible that such a great, beautiful ideal overturned in its opposite. We saw it in the television all over the world, the violence, destruction, even injustice. And on the other hand, how could this ideal continue to operate? Today, I had the privilege to assist to a lesson of Professor Corton. She was speaking about the relationship between the virtues of Aristotle and the social doctrine of the Church. It is undoubtable we are made for great things. We are not made for. And this is, at the end of the day, the great virtues of magnanimity, to be made for great things, to let the people, to transmit the people the sense of a mission, of a self. So the question is, how is it possible to make such ideals live and be lived? It is a virtue. And Sue had a precious answer. She said, it is as if the consciences has fallen asleep. And in the discussion we had these days, I had the privilege to meet many of you during the meetings, experience the profound relationship between students and professors. It arises that the point is to reawaken the consciences. And as you know, the terms come from scire, to know, consci, cum scire, to know something that goes beyond, something more than the pure, simple observation of the empirical date, of the empirical element. That is to say, a knowledge that goes deeper, that gives the empirical information a decisive orientation, that gives even to life a decisive direction. And the great question here is, of course, in this framework, how to reaffirm and reintroduce stronger than ever the Catholic and Lasallian mission. And the more that the time I passed here, the more I became conscious of the fact that this is not an empty word, Lasallian mission. I was faced every 2-3 meters with your motto, with your wonderful motto, because of you, on every wall, on every door, because of you, because of you. And of course, it's much more than marketing. It's much more than a well-done marketing campaign. Also because it is, in my opinion, the more I thought about it, another way, a modern way to say virtus et scientia, which is the motto of this university, virtus et scientia. In fact, this motto, virtus et scientia, is that much bounded with what to be Catholic educator and what Catholic education means, that you could even arrive to say that you are not really Catholic and Christian if you are not Lasallian, because of you. And in reverse, that you are not really Lasallian, if not even only naturaliter Catholic, that you can develop the whole enormous potential of your Lasallian DNA, right? Only if you are deeply embedded in the Catholic communio, in the Catholic brotherhood, in the Catholic tradition. Simul stabunt, simul cadunt, what we say in Rome. They will either stand together or fall together. And I found a beautiful synthesis of all this in the last number of Lasallian or even Catholic reflection, yes, number 2024-2025. The title is Our Heart is in the Peripheries. Also in that case, more than a well-done marketing campaign or a captatio benevolentiae towards Pope Francis, no? A capture of the goodwill of Pope Francis, the great Pope of the peripheries, the great Pope of inclusiveness. Let me read only the very first page of it, Lasallian DNA, because it struck me really. And it's written, where is your focus? And the answer is, we propose to focus on the heart. It's very important, on the heart. And from there, to recognize that the present times invite us to dwell in the peripheries. We propose to focus on the heart, and from there to recognize that the present times invite us to dwell in the peripheries. And curiously, a quote of the Little Prince of Antoine de Saint-Exupéry follows. As an explanation of these words, the Little Prince, who has inspired so many generations, expresses it with the simple depth of a fox who tells him, what is essential is invisible to the eye. It can only be seen with the heart. Is to say, where the reason does not more arrive, the heart arrives. The heart as a power, as a force of knowledge. Think about the term that it is used here, to contemplate. So let us try to look with our eyes and to contemplate with our eyes, with our heart, to look with our eyes and to contemplate with our heart. Cum templare means etymologically to involve in the process of knowledge a dimension, the dimension of the temple, cum templum, the dimension of adoration, the dimension of the heart. And adoration means love. And to involve in the process of knowledge a dimension, this second dimension, that is as real as the pure empirical dimension. A dimension that the pure empirical does not reach, but which the empirical rational dimension needs to be really herself, not to be only rational, but also reasonable, human. And the fact is that in these days, the question arose in me, how can you really with sincerity and moral honesty say, because of you, without this second dimension? And what is reason is knowledge. For without this deeper aim of exercising reason, we had it this morning by Professor Corton. What is scientia for without virtue? This is in fact for Pope Benedict the great challenge of education, as the great challenge of the Church in our time, and the real contribution to the future of the world. The things come, as I said many times in these days, when they have to. We do not choose the moments in which the things come, ripen. But from the perspective of Rome, that has an importance as a center of a universal reality, really there is the conscience that education has to be put in the center. Because virtue, scientia without virtue, means Pope Francis and also Pope Benedict are very clear, a dynamic of destruction, a dynamic of global destruction, a dynamic of diseducation. So I come back to the topic, one heart and one mind, virtue and scientia, cum templum, knowledge and contemplation. Inclusiveness in Francis and Benedict. And I have mercy enough now not to quote from these encyclicals, but only to synthesize the main ideas, the main thought, and then wait for this or that question. Now, of course, Francis, in the documents he wrote, the Declaration of Abu Dhabi on human fraternity for world peace and living together with the Grand Imam Al-Azhar, Ahmad al-Tayyib, and then in his encyclica Fratelli Tutti, Brother All, focuses on the idea of citizenship. Citizenship means to widen the horizon of rights and duties, and the more you establish full citizenship for everybody, the more you, of course, eliminate exclusiveness, improve inclusiveness. the more you enlarge the radius of citizenship, the more you embrace the peripheries. So the more you practice inclusivity, and the more that central, crucial, because of you becomes true. But, and now I come to the last 2 points, the apparent contradiction is that rather all, Fratelli Tutti, the title of the encyclical of Pope Francis, is taken from the admonitions of the Holy Francis to his own Franciscan brothers, that shortly before dying, a kind of parallel spiritual testament, or a spiritual testament beside the testament he wrote before dying in October 1226. And it is interesting to note how Francis in both documents ardently invites his brothers to remain in the Christian brotherhood, in the Christian community, because this is the only way, he says and repeats, to put the Sermon of the Mount into action. That is to say, with our words, with the words of our community, to make really that because of you come true. And I think that this contradiction is completely clarified if you, as we should do when we read a papal document, every papal document, if we add to the Francis encyclica and Francis document the 2 encyclicas that Pope Francis has written on similar subjects, Deus Caritas Est, God is Love, and Caritas in Veritate, Love in Truth. And I quote only a passage of this encyclica, especially from the first one. Benedict writes, faith, hope, and charity go together. Faith, hope, and charity go together. Hope is practiced through the virtue of patience, which continues to do good, even in the face of apparent failure, and through the virtue of humility, which accepts God's mystery and trusts Him, even at times of darkness. Faith tells us that God has given His Son for our sakes and gives us the victorious certainty that it is really true, God is love. And thus transforms our impatience and our doubts into the sure hope that God holds the world in His hands, and that at the dramatic imagery of the end of the book of Revelation points out, as the dramatic imagery of the end of the book of Revelation points out, in spite of all darkness, He ultimately triumphs in glory. Faith, which sees the love of God revealed in the pierced heart of Jesus on the cross, gives rise to love. Love is the light, and in the end, the only light that can always illuminate a world grown dim and give us the courage needed to keep living and working. Love is possible, and we are able to practice it because we are created in the image of love. To experience love, and in this way to cause the light of God to enter into the world. To experience love, and in this way to cause the light of God to enter into the world. This is the invitation I would like to extend with the present encyclical. And it is exactly the same dynamics described in this beautiful number of Lassallean Reflection. When it's written, we propose to focus on the heart, and from there, what does it mean concretely? Yesterday I had a lunch with the chaplain of a university, Father Nathan Ladiberte, who told me that every weekend he travels around the United States to serve in the cross-Catholic outreach. And when I heard this, I said to him, I wish to give you a quote of Benedict, and then I wish to ask your opinion about it. And I quoted him this passage of an interview of Benedict. The interviewer asks him, but at the end of the day, what does God really want from us? And the former Cardinal Ratzinger asked, firstly and mainly, that we become people who love. Namely, we fulfill our likeness to Him. That is because, as St. John says, He is love and wants creatures that are similar to Him, who, in choosing freely to love, become like Him, belong to Him, and thus spread His beauty. To spread His beauty is a synonymous of because of you, that special relationship between teachers and pupils I saw in this university. I think, and I am in conscience not exaggerating, that Benedict XVI would deeply support this attempt of us, of a renewal from within of the university, of the Catholic university, of the Christian-inspired university we are trying now. Really, a Christian faith without the wingspan of that because of you is simply not true faith. And education is really the first and most important form of loving and beloved. But that concrete, generous, lasting love for the other, to give oneself for the other, it's really not poetry. I participated to a meeting with some students of studying anesthesia, and I saw how really the teachers give themselves for the students. And this giving oneself is, after all, fully and lastingly possible only if it's nourished by another because of you. Because of you, my Lord, would St. Augustine say. So, when you write at the end of your mails, live Jesus in our hearts forever, it is really a program for the good of everyone, believers, non-believers. Thank you very much for your patience, and I hope, as a foundation, Benedict XVI, to be helpful in all your efforts as a university, as a community, as a part of the Church, as one of the points in which and through which the educational system wishes to be really effective in today's world. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Dr. Azzaro. We do have a few minutes for questions, and I'll just pass around the mic if anyone would like to ask. All right, souls. Oh, come on, we have to ask one question there. Michelle.
I'm just curious what we as the campus, both Winona and Minneapolis and Rochester, what can we expect to see with Benedict XVI during his future visit?
Spoil it.
What can we expect? So it is a crucial question. It is a crucial question. Well, of course, we are building up this cooperation. What we wish to do is to inform all the universities we cooperate with that we have found a focus from which we wish to propose a model of education. Propose a model of education has become a task, a principal task of the foundation. Otherwise, we wouldn't have established this chair with a seat also in the Vatican in Rome. So we wish to say all to the universities we cooperate with that the forces should converge here in order to build up a successful model for the future. So concentrate. And we wish to also involve all the personalities we have known during the years. For example, the Ratzinger Award winners from 2011-12 to testify the truth of the perspective we propose. I know for nobody it's easy to come to Winona, but it is worth in this perspective of trying to build up a model. And I think we have special project also, but I would say these are two things that we can expect. And then, of course, all the other measures we know as people of this world that implement this or that can help to implement exchange of students between the universities, exchange of professors between the universities, but mainly in this perspective.
Dr. Azzaro, I was really struck by your priority of reawakening the consciences of our students, partly because I think our students are hungry for that, and they're looking for roles in this world. And I was wondering if you could fill in a little bit about a model for education that would help us to reawaken the consciences of our students and the faculty role in either choosing material from the humanities or other areas, or modes of engaging students inside or outside the classroom that you think would be effective?
These are crucial questions, but the most important thing, as I said, is that they are the right questions. And I think the right starting point is what you said, and we can testify it and witness it without fear of being contradicted. There is a thirst of it. There is a thirst of it. Every one of us who begins to speak about these subjects, beginning from the very beginning of the European civilization, knows that observes that the students began to demonstrate attention. These are questions that I pose myself, things that I ask to myself too. How can we do it? I think a good way is to begin with small groups, also with small groups of professors that think regularly about these questions, of students. It is not important the quantity. It's important to re-begin from a drop. This was also the idea of Benedict of the creative minorities. Also the Christians are more and more becoming a creative minority, an absolute creative. But it is important, creative. When you become creative, the drop can give its color to all the glass, to all the water in glass. So, creative minorities. And we have to build up creative minorities inside the university. And I think also not concentrating on the whole university system, but concentrating on our reality as a university, our community, our diocese. But your question is the question, and the fact that you pose it is a sign of life. You know, always, I think to my, every time I think to this question, I have in mind, I think I have quoted it once, the image of the Roman palms. We had years ago an extremely dramatic phenomena that an insect coming from the east entered into the palms and destroyed them from within totally. These enormous palms, 100 meters high, 30 meters bright. But every time the experts saw a palm, the first thing they wanted to see if there was a minimum of kernel of life. They said, if this minimum of kernel of life exists, then the palm can flourish again. And it was incredible to see how total died palms, seems that they cut all the leaves, the gigantic leaves, in 2, 3, 5 years reflourished totally. So it is not an image to of empty hope, but it is really so, I think. Then
do we have one more question? We've just a couple of minutes remaining. Yes.
Okay, so you said that the heart is a force of knowledge, and then you said to look with our eyes and to contemplate with our heart. And what are some ways that students as individuals can work towards that habit and work towards that goal of using both, both our minds and both our hearts to contemplate what we're learning?
I would ask Joseph Ratzinger to come a moment from where he is. to answer to your wonderful questions. I am inadequate, but what I can say is most simple ways to live this in your life, in your university life, to read good books that your professor advise you to read, that your parish priests advise you to read. And my hope is that you experience it, that you experience it. And I trust very much in this community between professors and pupils. But it is once more a great question in itself. So I don't know who said that the most important thing is to know the way, to know the direction, then you will arrive.
Thank you, Dr. Azzaro, and thank you everyone for coming.